The last real big name on the free agent board has found a home out east, and the Carolina Hurricanes are looking like they could be a real contender. What about the Jets? What about anybody else? Gonna be a tough offseason now, the rest of the way, and teams are gonna have to get creative. But Ehlers to Carolina feels like a home run. Let's talk about it. So, one of the last big names on the board for free agents in the NHL is on his way to Carolina, as Nick Ehlers has signed a 6-year deal worth $8.5 million a season. There's a few different layers to this. Let's start with the Carolina aspect of it. I love it for them. They needed to be able to generate more offense. He does that. I think they needed to be able to play with a little bit more pace. Boy, does he do that. I just think he gives them quite a few boosts in some areas that they were looking for. And at this point, like, they are obviously geared up for the playoffs. I think they are so clearly the best team in their division. And I could understand if, given the lack of success in the conference finals and how far away they felt from the Panthers, if they just wanted to, okay, this ain't our time, let's pivot and go a different direction. I think you could understand that, but I do like that they have just been like, you know what? We just kind of feel like being good again, so we're going to be a good hockey team again. I love that for them. Really like that they are making that type of a push. And while Ehlers doesn't necessarily feel like a Rod Brindamore type of a guy, I do think that he helps fill in a few different gaps that this team was missing offensively. And now you look at what they have as a forward unit, and it is one of the best top nines in the National Hockey League. Daily Faceoff on their depth chart board thing has Ehlers on the left side with Aho and Jarvis. That would be an amazing spot for him, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there are a couple different spots that you can kind of play around with in growing this hockey team and trying to get a little bit more offense out of a team that was kind of known for just a smothering defensive style. But I think that they kind of learned from Florida here too, where you can have that good, strong defensive base, but the second that the other team makes a bit of a boo-boo, whatever that may be, jump on the puck, rush it up the ice. And Ehlers is so good at that with the speed that he can play with, the offensive skill that he has. Maybe he is not locked down, shut down type of a guy, but the second the opposition turns that puck over or anything, it needs to be rushing up and it needs to be an opportunity. Carolina tried to do that against Florida in the first couple of games before they just got washed out, and they were successful in getting the puck out and rushing up ice, but they weren't successful in finishing. And that's where Florida really took advantage, is that the Panthers were a team that made you pay for every mistake. And I think Ehlers helps get the Hurricanes, into that spot a little bit easier and a little bit better now. So I think that this is a great move for Carolina. And they still have about $10 million in salary cap space to play with. Now, the game changers aren't there in the free agent market anymore, but if this team wants to go out and make a trade, they have all of their first round picks plus an extra one from Dallas in 2028. And there are a couple of holes that still need to be plugged, I think. For them, I wouldn't hate an upgrade at second line center. I don't know how much I would love going into a season with Kotkaniemi still as my number 2 center. Maybe not the season. I shouldn't say that. I don't know how much I would love to go into a playoff series with Florida again as Kotkaniemi being my number 2 center. So I think that is an area that they would be looking to upgrade. But I mean, get in line, right? Like, everyone is looking to upgrade that position. Maybe you want another defenseman. Like, they have a top 4 of Slavin, Walker, Condre Miller, who they just acquired, and Jalen Chatfield. That is a solid top 4. You've got Gostisbehere as your 5. So, like, it is a very, very solid core and a very solid defensive team anyway, structurally. But maybe you would like a bit of a talent upgrade to push one of those guys down to a pairing with Gostisbehere. I do think goalie needs to be addressed, but Anderson has shown that he can be good enough to at least get them to the conference finals. And so the obvious replacement for him isn't out there, so I don't think they need to go selling off a bunch of assets to try to make that happen. But they're in a spot now where they can still tinker, still improve, and they have a lot of wiggle room to play with on the salary cap side of things. As far as Ehlers goes, I think this is a real win for him. I don't know if he ever really got... To say he never got a fair shake in Winnipeg feels a little dismissive, but I look at where the Jets are at. And like you had Ehlers playing with Nemestikov and Perfetti this year, and when he wasn't doing that, it was with Lowry and Appleton. Like those are their second and third lines, but it doesn't really give him the real opportunities to fully shine. And it wasn't really working with like Scheifele and Connors or anything like that. But those lines that he was on, it felt like he needed to be a bit more of the driver. And if he is going to play with Aho and with Jarvis, that ain't happening. He is going to think, I think he is really going to thrive on this team if they put him in those positions. I think there's a hell of a hockey player in there with Nikolaj Ehlers. And we've talked before, anytime I watch him play, he has a big game. It's just, I don't get as many viewings of the Jets and is that consistency. But I think getting the consistency and the opportunities now is really going to help him shine and really going to help him kind of take advantage of a whole lot of things. Look, I'm not the biggest fantasy hockey guy in the world, but this feels like it could be a really big year coming up for him. As far as what it means for Winnipeg, this one, it's a hit, but it's not totally unexpected. I think that they were prepared for this. I think the signings of Taves and Nyquist are good pivots, with Lowry being out for most of the year, and now Ehlers being out for forever as he's in Carolina. I think it's a good pivot. I've always been a fan of Nyquist. He is 35, and it was a real down year last year. But I do think that putting him, again, like put him with Nemestikov and Perfetti, I think that there is a way that you can get at least some of the 60 points back that Ehlers takes with him out the door. They have $19 million in cap space, but they still have Velarde and a couple of others to kind of figure out. They also have all their firsts, like I said. It does feel like trade is going to be the way that this team improves, or internal growth. And it does kind of seem like they have to, because this division is so good. And look, the roster is good, but with Ehlers and Lowry now basically gone, and a couple of others as well, you're trying to catch up to what last year's team was instead of making it better. But I could see the Jets kind of like a bit of a pivot where, look, we think that like regular season, we're set. We just think it kind of fell apart in the playoffs. And so by bringing in a Jonathan Taves, who has seen every situation, good or bad, having him in our locker room is going to be enough to just keep what we have going in the regular season and just have our mental clarity be the improvement that we need going into the next season. So I think that this is a really good spot for them.